At last, Kelly Clarkson has broken her silence. The powerhouse singer finally spoke up about her heartbreaking breakup with Brandon Blackstock after months of silence. Nobody had anticipated what she revealed. It evoked strong feelings and was unexpected, coming to terms with the dissolution of a marriage. As Kelly's confession reveals, there was far more going on behind the scenes than what the fans had imagined. The world cringed as she spoke the truth, her voice quivering with emotion. Everything has altered because of what she disclosed. Finding love was an ongoing process for Kelly Clarkson even before she knew it was happening when she met Brandon. She initially met Brandon Blackstock in May 2006 during preparations for the Academy of Country Music Awards. At that point in time, Kelly had already achieved stardom as the young woman known as American Idol's 2002 first season winner. A household name in the music business, her singing career had catapulted her to stardom. Brandon, on the other hand, was not a celebrity. In the country music industry, he was doing behind-the-scenes labor, while leading a completely separate life from Kelly, constantly advancing his profession. Brandon was still married to Melissa Ashworth when they first crossed paths. The couple had 2 children, Seth and Savannah, from their previous marriage. Kelly was totally devoted to her acting profession, whilst Brandon was more concerned with his family and work. Their first meeting was short. They exchanged smiles and a few words before they went their separate ways. Nonetheless, Kelly couldn't help but believe that Brandon was unique. She loved his charisma and the way he could always make her laugh. She secretly thought they would run across each other again someday. Years passed after their brief encounter. The roads of their life diverged. Kelly's career skyrocketed. She delighted adoring fans all over the world on her concert tours. Hit albums were released by her. She became famous as a leading vocalist of her time. Despite her many accomplishments, she had a hard time finding love in her private life. Brandon was a devoted talent manager throughout that time. Starstruck Entertainment is a prominent Nashville management firm, and he eventually began working there alongside his father, Brandon Blackstock. His famous musician father was wed to country music icon Reba McEntire for over 20 years. So, Brandon was raised in the shadow of legendary country music singers. Brandon was able to meet and form long-lasting friendships via these relationships, including with Blake Shelton. After his marriage dissolved, his personal life took a turn, yet his career remained firmly planted in the music industry. After meeting for the first time 6 years ago, Kelly and Brandon were finally reunited at the 2012 Super Bowl. This time, everything fell into place. After years of concentrating on her profession, Kelly was finally ready to pursue love, and Brandon was single. Their long-discussed possibility of being together finally came to fruition. It was as if all the time apart had been leading up to that one magical moment. Their bond was instantaneous. Their connection blossomed quickly as a result of their shared sense of having discovered something unique and authentic. Less than 12 months after their reconciliation, in December of that year, Brandon asked Kelly to be his wife. Kelly accepted his proposal without hesitation. When she was with him, she felt at ease like never before. It was as if something had finally clicked into place in her life. She felt safe and at home in his company. Despite spending much of her life in the limelight, Kelly yearned for stability and a dependable affection. That was her reaction because of Brandon. They built their relationship on the solid ground of laughter, being together, and Kelly's longing for a sense of home, rather than on the excitement or fame that Kelly had always desired. She spoke about him with an air of ease and warmth, as if she had finally discovered a solution to the conflict between her professional and personal lives. She had built her universe with much grit and perseverance, but she now had someone to talk to about it. Brad wasn't merely a business associate in her eyes. The puzzle piece was him. Before he came back into her life, she had no idea what she wanted. The effect of timing on results was shown by their experience. Their first glance at each other was fleeting in the middle of a busy place. A major shift began with the next meeting. Kelly thought her patience was well placed since she had obtained the love and security she craved. She felt an instant connection with her soulmate, an ethereal affection that grew dim with time. A watershed point in Kelly Clarkson's life occurred on October 20th, 2013. A small wedding took place at Blackberry Farm, a luxurious lodge in the Tennessee mountains, where she was married to Brandon Blackstock. She opted for a small, intimate ceremony that held personal significance for her instead of the large public event that many had anticipated from a famous musician of her caliber. Kelly preferred her big day to be low-key and unremarkable, so she avoided the press and the spotlight. Loving one another, celebrating family, and looking forward to their future together were her main wedding priorities. Kelly became a stepmother to Brandon's sons Seth and Savannah when she wed him. She was eager to provide them a loving home and was ready to embrace them with open arms. They welcomed a daughter, River Rose, into the world a year after that, who was succeeded 2 years later by a son, Remington Alexander. Loved spending time together as a family of 6 on special occasions and in the ordinary. She did her best to make each of their 4 children feel loved and included, and she took pride in their blended family. Their bond deepened in the workplace. A pivotal influence in Kelly's development came from Brandon, who was already managing country music star Blake Shelton. Before he was even her manager in 2017, he was a major influence in her career development. Because of his role in her casting as a coach on The Voice, she was able to gain exposure to a wider audience and develop her career further. Subsequently, he helped her create the daytime hit that was The Kelly Clarkson Show. Kelly allegedly made millions from these endeavors. Her season income from The Voice alone is considerable. Kelly felt that Brandon's commercial acumen was the ideal complement to her natural aptitude. On several occasions, she reiterated her belief in him, saying that she had seen firsthand his commitment to the artists he collaborated with. Their paths crossed because of Kelly's music, which mirrored her life outside of work. Additionally, her 2015 single Piece by Piece was released, with the intention of creating a deeply moving piece. The contrast between the childhood abandonment she felt when her father left her and the unwavering love of her husband Brandon inspired the song. She had a hard time bringing herself to perform the song live since it evoked so many strong feelings: thankfulness, memories, and anger. You could almost hear the tears welling up in her voice on occasion when Brandon was in the crowd. The song had deeper meaning for Kelly than simply melody. It was her heartfelt words praising the man who had helped her overcome past hurts and found eternal hope in family and love. Kelly appeared to be doing fine at first glance. Her life seemed ideal. She was married to the love of her life, they had a beautiful blended family, and she was a successful singer. It seemed like her marriage was rock strong, and she had a famous talk show and was a judge on The Voice. On the inside, though, Kelly was carrying an unspoken weight. Despite her marital status, she later admitted that she regularly had feelings of loneliness. The balance she believed she had attained was beginning to fade away. Since she did not always receive the support she had hoped for from her husband, she often found herself juggling work and home responsibilities on her own. In 2016, her closest friends and family members began to see the strain she was under, balancing one's professional and private lives. The boundaries were blurred and tensions were hard to avoid when Brandon acted as both her husband and manager. The breaks were little and hidden when that happened, so no one could see them. Kelly, who is known for her optimism and strength, didn't voice her worries. She was successful in keeping them hidden from her advocates. But on the inside, the marriage that had been rock solid was beginning to crumble under the weight of job pressure, unrealistic expectations, and emotional distance. Subsequent events revealed how precarious their relationship really was. It had turned into a life-threatening ordeal for Kelly, despite its foundation in love, trust, and family. During one of the most trying moments of her life, she found herself fighting against the same sentiments that had once brought her joyous tears of gratitude to the guy who had finished her. Love, music, and family were once the foundation of Kelly Clarkson and Brandon Blackstock's universe. There were highs and lows to their voyage, and many people could relate to Kelly's songs about those times. Their connection showed them that love can't solve all problems. But hey, even the best love tales have their share of obstacles. A tale of a heartbreaking farewell. The marriage of Kelly Clarkson and Brandon Blackstock was in disarray in the beginning of 2020. What was once a secure and caring partnership had become a source of stress and anxiety for both parties. The couple had been married for almost 7 years when Kelly filed for a divorce in Los Angeles on June 4th, claiming they could not reconcile their differences. Nevertheless, there was a lot more meat to the story than what was publicly said when they broke up. Many admirers were caught off guard by the announcement. In the eyes of many, they were a powerful and bonded couple. Nonetheless, this was something that Kelly had been considering for some time. Over the course of several years, she had been quietly working to preserve her marriage. She wished they could remain a married couple for the benefit of their 2 children, Remington and River. She did everything she could to keep the marriage from falling apart, but she realized it was futile. The foundation upon which her reliance had formerly rested had crumbled. Substrate collapsed. Even as she tried, it remained unfixable. Disarray erupted following the filing of the divorce proceedings. A highly publicized legal battle ensued as the split intensified. There were heated debates in front of the public eye over child custody, asset split, and money difficulties. An important point of contention was the ownership of their Montana ranch, a large tract of land with sentimental value. Was the place where many dreams had begun. Even though Kelly thought she had the legal claim to the land, Brandon was adamant about keeping it. The court ultimately sided with Kelly, giving her full ownership while Brandon received 5% of its value. Even after the verdict, the animosity persisted. Physical custody of their 2 children was granted to Kelly in November 2020. Despite the fact that they shared legal custody, the circumstances were difficult. In addition, the financial deal was quite large. The documents show that the judge ordered Kelly to pay Brandon more than $1 million all at once. She was also ordered to pay $45,601 for child support and $115,000 for spousal support until early 2024. The sums were substantial, but monetary considerations were peripheral to the true expense. The real weight was concealed emotional and mental. Because of the persistent animosity and broken trust, co-parenting was challenging. Tensions could rise even in seemingly innocuous discussions regarding the kids. It was difficult to work together due to animosity, unresolved wounds, and suppressed pain. As their friends could see by the tension in the room, the difficulties of a divorced marriage did not end with the paperwork. There was much dispute after that. Started a new legal battle in 2021. Starstruck Management Group, owned by Brandon's father, and Brandon himself were accused by her of acting as her agent without the proper California license. A labor commissioner agreed with Kelly's accusation in 2023, despite Brandon's denials of wrongdoing. He was directed to pay her $2.6 million. The fans were devastated by this turn of events. What had once appeared to be a loving and cooperative relationship was now openly disintegrating. The perils of marrying for profit is the subject of this cautionary tale. The court battles concluded in 2023. Melanoma is a deadly form of skin cancer, and Brandon Blackstock was fighting it personally. Hearing his diagnosis was tough, and the prognosis was far worse. For 3 years, he told no one but those closest to him about his battle. Kelly took on the unanticipated responsibility of caretaker despite all the obstacles they encountered. She was resolute in her desire to protect her children from their partner's complicated history, but she also knew that their children needed both of them. Kelly and her children Remington and River relocated to New York City in 2023 so that she could host her talk show. Regardless, she rearranged her schedule to give them more time with their sick father. She began to feel the effects of her private issues on her work life in March 2024. Kelly simply stated personal reasons for missing 10 tapings of her chat show. Andy Cohen, Simu Liu, and Brooke Shields were among her famous friends who stepped in as last-minute guest hosts while she was away. Viewers couldn't make sense of her disappearance. Her children's mental health was her top priority. Therefore, she secretly visited Brandon in Montana, as her loved ones knew. Brandon kept his composure in front of others, even though he was sick. Together with his business partner Brittany Marie Jones, he founded the Valley View Rodeo and was actively involved in the community as the manager of the Headwaters Livestock Auction. He was pictured during the 2024 Houston Rodeo with River, Remington, Shelby, his brother, and Reba McEntire, his stepmother. In public, he smiled for the cameras, but behind closed doors, he was fighting illness harder than ever. In the end, Kelly chose not to answer. She chose not to address the rumors or recognize the talk concerning his well-being. Those who knew her best described her as fiercely protective, preserving her focus on her children and refusing to allow rumors to downplay something potentially devastating. August 2024 was the turning point. On August 6th, Kelly announced publicly that she was canceling her remaining Las Vegas gigs due to the illness of her children's father. Brandon, who was 48 years old, died at home later on that day. It was a difficult time when Brandon passed away. In recognition of Brandon's life and work, a statement was released. Savannah, Seth, River, and Remington, his 4 children, were all mentioned in it. It highlighted his work and his volunteer work. Nevertheless, Kelly was not mentioned. After his breakup with Kelly, he went on to have a meaningful relationship with Brittany Jones, as described in the statement. Kelly was noticeably left out. It brought to light the complicated history, the pain, and the chasm that still existed. Kelly opted not to make a statement in public. She remained silent, but her close friends and family said she was distraught. She felt terrible about losing her father and the impact it would have on her children as they grew up. They had been through a lot together, including love, fights, and sadness. A beautiful love tale that began with words ended without them. With much sorrow, abandoning recollections that were at once a source of solace and anguish. The romance between Kelly Clarkson and Brandon Blackstock is complicated. There are highs and lows as they face obstacles, build a family, and eventually suffer a devastating loss while trying to build a life together. Being famous and successful does not protect people from experiencing heartache, as this offers as a reminder. Conquering setbacks with perseverance. Kelly Clarkson, who had been in the spotlight for almost 20 years prior to Brandon Blackstock's death, decided to withdraw from it after his passing. Her singing, TV appearances, and special relationship with her followers made her famous. It was clear that she was not there. Nonetheless, those closest to her understood her need for a vacation. She put her children, Remington and River, ahead of her profession and celebrity, who had just lost their father in an unexpected and terrible accident. Kelly refrained from addressing the media and public right away. She refrained from conveying her profound sorrow to all in a lengthy statement. She chose to listen to her children instead, because she thought their opinions mattered the most. At first, she did everything she could to reassure her children that they were safe and loved despite the new realities they faced. Because their father was not there, River and Remington were bewildered and sad. Kids process loss in their own unique ways, and Kelly understood that this may manifest in a variety of ways, including curiosity, silence, or subtle displays of anguish. In order to help them, Kelly created a calm and welcoming atmosphere at home. The welfare of her children became her first priority, so she rearranged her schedule, cut back on her obligations, and communicated this to her friends and colleagues. She hoped her home would be a place her children could feel comfortable expressing themselves, finding joy, remembering, and working through their grief. In secret, Kelly was coping with her suffering. With Brandon, she had spent a great deal of time. She was deeply saddened by his passing, despite the fact that their marriage had ended in tragedy. She was grieving the unchangeable loss of her children's father, her ex-partner, and a chapter in her life. For the sake of her children, she mustered fortitude despite her heavy heart. Regarding her professional life, Kelly was in a bind. She had already taped pieces for The Voice and was fully committed to Season 7 of The Kelly Clarkson Show. She was desired by both shows. Her warm and welcoming nature made her followers eagerly anticipate her television appearances. Kelly, who had previously overcome exhaustion, was now grieving the death of a loved one. Her strength had been sapped by her grief. She found the thought of putting on an act under the intense studio lighting to be somewhat intimidating. Word on the street was that Kelly was considering a hiatus from the industry. Many assumed she would take a break from performing live. The bosses understood the impact of her recent loss on her, yet they still wanted her to keep working. She seemed less invested in her career than before. She was contemplating lightening her load, either limiting herself to one-off projects like her holiday specials, or perhaps leaving television altogether after her contract ended. Kelly never did this before, but this awful event made her reconsider her workload. Despite the toll it had on her body, she was renowned for working tirelessly. Those close to her could see the impact it was having on her. Her voice had worn out after years of non-stop touring and performing. The physicians had cautioned her that, without rest, she risked doing irreparable harm. Already, she was on the verge of requiring surgery. She was already fragile from dealing with sadness and exhaustion. Kelly began passing up opportunities that had brought her joy after Brandon's death. Being busy was more important to her than her health and the quality of her time with her children. Rather, she prioritized her own health and being present for her loved ones. Her new definition of success shifted from doing more concerts or writing more songs to prioritizing her family's healing and being a good mother. Unnoticed by the public eye, Kelly privately honored Brandon in meaningful ways. She made sure that Remington and River both had pictures of their dad on display in their bedrooms. She encouraged them to talk about their feelings about him, the good and the negative, so they wouldn't be alone in thinking about him. In order to help them, she worked with a grief counselor who reassured them that it's okay to be sad and reflect on the past. Kelly was careful not to bring Brandon's negative reputation to their children, even if her divorce from him was acrimonious. She emphasized how much their father loved them and how his love would never leave them. Even though Kelly's marriage was troubled, she wanted her children to know that their father's love for them was real and unbreakable. Even though it can be difficult to merge families, she made an effort to stay in contact with Brandon's older children, Savannah and Seth, so that they wouldn't feel alienated or neglected. Kelly sought for ways to incorporate them into River and Remington's life. Living under one roof wasn't the only thing that meant family to her. It also meant taking care of one another and sticking together, especially when things became bad. What Kelly did during this trying time spoke louder than words could. In the midst of supporting her children through a difficult time, she kept her emotions hidden. She skillfully navigated the challenges of her long-term profession alongside the grief of losing a loved one. She was making steady, graceful changes in her life as she rethought her priorities. Kelly made it clear that being a mother was more important to her than swiftly resuming her famous career. In defiance of expectations, the recovery of her children from their traumatic experiences was her primary focus. She was able to do both by giving thought to the past via nurturing, talking about it, and remembering it. Kelly Clarkson did not speak publicly for several months following the passing of Brandon Blackstock. According to Clarkson's Song of Goodbye, there was no pressing need for her to express her feelings or demand attention from anyone. She chose to keep quiet about her suffering and concentrate on her mundane tasks. Despite attending to her talk show duties, her first concern was with her children, who gave her strength and solace during this challenging period. "I took advantage of the quiet months to unwind and recharge. Neither pity nor being the focus of attention were things she sought. She put up a brave front for the people around her, keeping her sadness hidden. Nonetheless, she was prepared to let her guard down and express her emotions at some point. She skipped interviews and written comments when she wanted to make her voice heard. The stage was her choice since it allowed her genuine self to radiate." Kelly performed Piece by Piece, one of her most beloved songs, again during a special event. She wrote this song a long time ago, when she thought Brandon would give her peace and happiness. At one point, the lyrics were optimistic, except that they're heavier today. The music was the same, but the emotion behind her song shifted as her voice trembled with each note she sang. Memories, melancholy, and introspection were contained within each note. After all she had been through, love, disappointment, loss, and the complicated reality of their relationship, the song mirrored everything she had felt, not just her prior hopes. Throughout the intermissions of her performances, Kelly addressed the crowd directly. She opened up about the hidden aspects of Brandon, which added an extra layer of difficulty to her divorce. She wanted those parts of his character to stick with people. She hoped he wouldn't be forever remembered for the publicized marital problems. "He could make people laugh even when things were tight," she said, "and his jokes could lighten the situation." She recalled how his business savvy and confidence gave her the confidence to make choices and access opportunities she would not have had otherwise. His role as a dad was the one she emphasized most. She reflected on his compassionate nature toward their children and the profound impact his quiet strength had on their lives. She longed to perpetuate the precious memories of their family's acts of generosity and unity that she had shared with them, so that her children and others may perceive him as a whole person, not only a person marked by conflict. She thought it was important to recall pleasant experiences alongside the trials. According to Kelly, not everyone had all the facts about Brandon. It seemed like some individuals had just caught glimpses of him, rather than the whole man. He was more than the sum of his worst moments and his best imagined selves. With all his flaws and paradoxes, he was the middleman, the one she had met in real life. She spoke openly about the challenges they encountered as a co-parenting couple. She freely acknowledged that it was among the most difficult obstacles she had ever encountered. She had to draw on all her reserves of patience and strength to get through the most trying days. But she thought his feelings for their children were real. He was still very committed to their children even if they had a rocky relationship. Respecting this reality was her main point. For her, the performance was about more than just the music. She finally found an outlet for the hurt she had suppressed. With each letter and message, she came one step closer to achieving inner peace. Without attempting to change or improve the story, she sang and spoke honestly about the whole thing. In spite of its complexity, she chose to embrace the past as it was. Kelly elaborated on the fact that sadness is not a simple feeling. It can't undo wrongs done in the past, and neither can those wrongs erase the love that was there. The way a tale is remembered might be influenced by the presence of both grief and conflict. She performed with such conviction that it was clear she understood. Her expression changed from sorrowful to peaceful as the concert came to a close, and her voice grew softer. She gave the crowd more than simply music. Her heartfelt emotions were laid bare. Some relief and healing came to her as a result of this act of candor. Not a forgetful kind of closure, but the kind that lets you breathe easy and move on. Kelly did not use scripted remarks to formally bid Brandon farewell. Rather, she courageously bid farewell via song and candor. Her love and her anguish were on full display because she wanted everyone to see them. She did this to honor Brandon's memory. On behalf of herself, her husband, and their children, as well as anybody else acquainted with their tale. There is beauty in perseverance, even in the face of adversity, as her quiet resolve proved. Love is resilient and can overcome any obstacle. The heart can heal and go on when grief is accepted. As she sang to her fans, Kelly Clarkson revealed her innermost thoughts and sentiments. She fearlessly displayed her imperfections, wounds, and frailty. She opened up completely. At that very time, her farewell meant more than anything else. Truth, remembrance, and eternal love were all there in its purest form. In your opinion, how good is Kelly Clarkson? Leave a comment with your ideas. For more interesting stories, like, subscribe, and enable notifications.